deck we haven't covered much on the channel in a while. That is Affinity. Let's see what we can do with this hand. Guess we keep. It's more of a mid-range version of Affinity, but still, it's Affinity. Cost one less for each spell. Go Razortide Bridge into Mox Opal. Pass turn. Don't think I play Urza Saga on one. Okay, looks like we're up against Broodscale Combo. I hope we kind of get to take care of two birds with one stone on this one. No more +1/+1 counters. Equip this as 1. I did goof though. I should have cast Thoughtcast for 1. think we're dead anyway. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I mean, I see they get infinite power. I just don't know. I think a lot of it depends on what's in their hand. I mean, yeah, you get infinite power, you get infinite mana. Don't know that they have anything to do with it, though. Obviously, if they had Glaring Fleshraker, we'd just be dead. I mean, we can sit here all day. Okay, do 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 do. Okay, you're pumping a bunch of mana into something. Walking Ballista? Certainly looks like it. So my mistake was not taking Blade of the Blade of the Blood Sheaf or whatever this is, rather than the Broodscale. Mm-hmm. A nice example, though, of showing what the deck is capable of. Because basically it has Walking Ballista, Glaring Fleshraker, and Kozilek's Command basically is guaranteed wins once you get the combo rolling. So a 4 consigned to memory, 2 dispatch. Could theoretically bring in Force of Negation, but I don't think this is the right matchup for that. I think you just bring in the 4 consign, the 1 Pithing Needle, and the 2 dispatch. It's another random deck that gets hit by consign to memory because all of the key pieces are colorless. Basking Broodscale, I believe, is devoid technically. Yeah, which means it's colorless. And there's also the possibility that my opponent times out, so. As far as our sideboarding goes, so they could have either Glaring Fleshraker here or Walking Ballista that they scribe to the top. Either one's going to kill us. I think Fleshraker might have been a little bit faster. But yeah, really 2 birdies with 1 stone. Also, this is another reason why I didn't want to do the basking, whatchamacallit combo. It's just so tedious. A lot of clicking, especially if your opponent makes you play it out, which in some cases opponents won't. I'm doing it both because my opponent's bled so much clock and the fact that it's a learning opportunity for both Basking Root-Walla combo and Broodscale combo and Affinity. So this is the opponent's deck, or something nearly equivalent. Basking Broodscale plus Blade of the Blood Chief. You know, as they're sacking their Eldrazi spawns, getting a +1/+1 counter, they're generating infinite mana, generating infinite power. Then, as you saw with Kazi's command, they can stack their deck, and then they win with either pumping a huge amount into a Walking Ballista or Glaring Fleshraker. Whenever a creature enters under your control, sacrifices. And the funny part is, if they were doing all this with the Glaring Fleshraker, they just simply would have won the game. But I think they're going for the Ballista kill here, which, to be fair, is a guaranteed kill as well. So either one's going to get you there. Either one will get them to Sesame Street. Tell me how do you get to White Walking Ballista Street? And I screwed up by, like I said, with the portable hold draw, not dealing with the Blade to the Broodscale, because we had seen that they drew with with Mishra's Bauble, we saw that they were going to draw another Basking Broodscale. So that was my mistake. And this is also something you have to consider whenever you're playing Magic Online, is if you have a combo that's going to involve a lot of clicks, the potential for you to time yourself out, unfortunately, is a very real thing. As our opponents burn through almost half their clock or over half their clock for game one. So tell me how do you get to Sesame Street? Alright, dispatches and the consigns can come in. Pithing Needle comes in. Problem is I don't know. I think it's like literally shaving, like one thought cast, one thought monitor. Whisper, Pithing Needle, Shadow Spear, Soul Guide. I mean, there is some graveyard element to their deck with Evolutionary Witness and stuff, but I don't think we're winning that particular battle anyway. Trying to think. Cappy. Sand has no lands and doesn't do anything. Come on. Come on, MTGO, you can do it. Chugga, 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 chugga. You can do it! Blade of the Blood Chief, sure. or two, whatever it is. Mm-hmm. Sure. Interesting choice. Okay. There's those. Certainly think my opponent could have played that game a little better. And once again, no lands, doesn't do anything. And kind of does stuff. Let's put the Lava Spur Boots back. Sure. Mm-hmm. is just keeping a irresponsible hand, basically. Take 5 and like it. Yep. Pretty sure we just died with a beatdown plan, but yep, we just lose to the beatdown plan here. Can I get back Springling's Drum or a land? Chief. And then we'll just die with the beatdown plan. I mean, this isn't particularly hard. My opponent doesn't really have to cast these spells. They can just turn their stuff sideways and the game's over. Beseech you, sure. Oh yes, please go into a stupid loop where we're just wasting time. Let's just be a smart aleck at this point. But I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording, but we're dead. Obviously, we're dead here, so. So it's just being a smart aleck. Alright, so this was meant to be an Affinity video, but we're kind of going to turn it into a 2-for-1. So, Affinity was a list, or is a deck that has existed for most of Modern. It was based around cheap artifacts, speed, and power. Now, this deck is not quite Affinity of old, and there are other older or different style Affinity lists with Cranial Plating, Arcbound Ravager, etc., which were the more traditional variant. Now, the Affinity lists that have existed in the advent of MH3, or since MH3, even before Mox Opal got unbanned, was kind of this mid-range Urza Saga shell that we're kind of taking a look at and that we played today. Basically, you have a bunch of cheap artifacts, whether it's the Razortide Bridge and Darksteel Citadel, Memnite, Ornithopter, Mishra's Bauble, and Mox Opal, and then some interactive stuff with Portable Hole, and then your different bullets from Urza Saga, and then the Lava Spore Brutes to give things haste, Shadow Spear for racing situations, Soul Guide Lantern is a little bit of graveyard hate, Springleaf Drum is kind of your 5th pseudo Mox Opal to pair with your other 1 or 0 drops. And then, your takes advantage of artifact spells. Now, Tamiyo doesn't specifically take advantage of artifact spells, but it does play nicely with your draw 2s and Thoughtcast and Thought Monitor, allowing you to flip Tamiyo. Plus, it makes a bunch of clues, so it's not like the worst thing to include in the deck. It might be the most expensive thing to include in the deck, but it's not the most of. Sinking the Stupor as a 1-of is fine. It's kind of your 18th land in addition to your 4 Mox Opals and Spurnleaf Drum. 4 Emery allows you to rebuy a bunch of great artifacts from your graveyard. Metallic Rebuke is a little bit of interaction. And as I said, Thoughtcast and Thought Monitor kind of draw you through your deck. Kappa Cannoneer. This is a very difficult to kill creature because of the Ward 4. If you have a steady stream of artifacts, you can make this thing unblockable, beat your opponent down. It was a very important part of 8-cast in the Legacy format, which has kind of fallen off a little bit, but still was kind of the theory behind this deck. And then obviously Urza Saga kind of ties this all together. Still a very powerful thing in artifact-based decks and in Amulet. The sideboard in this one saw our 4 copies of Consigned Memory come in against Basking Broodscale Combo, 2 copies of Dispatch, which are basically Affinity's version of Path to Exile, 4 copies of Force of Negation for the combo matchups, and 2 copies of Metallic Rebuke, 2 Tormod's Crypts for the graveyard matchups, and the 1 of Pithing Needle for activated abilities, much like we just dealt with. That is Affinity. There are other versions you can look at, which are usually a bit more aggressive. They take more advantage of the Affinity mechanic, but the other deck we'll be looking at, thanks to our opponent, was Basking Broodscale Combo. Alright, now this isn't exactly our opponent's list, as that one obviously was a little bit different. They had Mystic Forge somewhere in their 75, and this version has no such thing. But basically this deck is built around Basking Broodscale and Blade of the Bloodchief. And in some similar ways to Grinding Station and Underworld Breach. It's 2-card combo that, in addition to one other card, can win the game. Now, in that case, you usually need a 0-mana artifact. In this deck's case, you generally need a payoff in your hand. Otherwise, it reads pass the turn, win the game if you can connect with your Basking Broodscale. But basically, Basking Broodscale, whenever one or more +1/+1 counters is put on Basking Broodscale, you may create a 1/1 colorless Eldrazi spawn token with sacrifice this creature, add 1 colorless mana. Okay, simple enough. Blade of the Blood Chief says whenever a creature dies, you put a +1/+1 counter on equipped creature. If equipped creature is vampire, put two +1/+1 counters instead. That second line is not relevant. What's relevant is every time you're sacking an Eldrazi Scion, whenever you have Blade of the Blood Chief equipped to Basking Broodscale, you're getting another Eldrazi Scion. This makes Basking Broodscale basically get infinite number of counters on itself, and then Blade of the Blood Chief just lets that be a loop. So infinite power, infinite mana. How do you win with infinite mana? The really 3 main ways to do it. First is Glaring Fleshraker. Whenever you cast a colorless spell, create a 0/1 Scion, sacrifice this creature, add 1 mana. Okay. Whenever another colorless creature enters the battlefield, Glaring Fleshraker deals 1 damage to each opponent. So basically, each iteration of your sacrificing a colorless Scion, a Scion's coming to play, dealing 1 damage to each opponent, kind of doming your opponent out from there. The other version is Walking Ballista. You pump it up to whatever your opponent's life total is. You then turn around and shoot your opponent to death. Okay, simple enough. Kozilek's command here allows you to look at the top half of your deck, or however much, especially if you got infinite mana, you can basically scry as much as you want, make a bunch of colorless Eldrazi Scions. If you have Glaring Fleshraker, obviously that's GG. But this is just a great utility card that we've seen pop up again and again. It popped up in our Eldrazi ramp deck that we showed a little bit of play. And finally, you basically have your pieces that tie it all together. You have 4 copies of Ancient Stirrings, 4 copies of Malevolent Rumble to find your missing pieces, and then you have, obviously, Kozilek's command to help you dig. You have Mishra's Wobble, because why not? You're playing Urza's Saga. And then Tyrion's Soul Cleaver is kind of Blade of the Blood Chief number 5. It costs 1, but it does cost 2 to equip, so it's a little bit less mana things. But whenever an artifact or creature is put in the graveyard from the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on an equipped creature. Basically, some way, somehow, if your opponent surgically extracts or extracts your Blade of the Blood Chiefs, this kind of gives you a backup way to win. Haymire White to free up some stuff. Mirror Sapling puts +1/+1 counter on target creature. Guess it's another way to kind of get the combo going. And then Springleaf Drum is just a nice way to pair with the rest of the deck. Agatha's Soul Cauldron allows you to make Basking Broodscale's ability from the graveyard, at least the activated ability. I'm not sure how relevant this is. Plus, it is incidental graveyard hate. I guess it gives the Walking Ballista's game plan, so you can remove +1/+1 counters from Walking Ballista, give it to Basking Broodscale, so you can cast Ballista for 0 early in the game, whatever, and then just kind of dome your opponent out from there. Then a bunch of lands. Boseiju came up, obviously, against Pithing Needle in that last matchup for us. And a War Reborn is a Graft land, I believe. Yep, Graft 1 gives +1/+1 counter, allows you to potentially start triggering Basking Broodscale, and then Urza's Saga kind of ties it all together, gives you a backup beatdown plan in addition to all the other stuff going on. Sideboard stuff, 2 copies of Dismember, a bunch of different things you can use this to kill, whether it's an early Goddess Souls, whether it's an early Ragavan, some type of hate card like something like, what's the name of the card? Collector Oof, etc. Thief of Existence is kind of a impermanence. It's basically their version of Skyclave Apparition, allowing you to deal with a bunch of random stuff. Your opponent has hate-based permanents. Then 2 copies of Veil Summer to help fight through the counter spells, in addition to Cavern of Souls. Then you have a bunch of different things. You have 2 copies of Spellskite. Obviously, this is mainly centered at Splinter Twin, but can also, potentially sidestep your opponent's removal, forcing them to target the spell escape. Defense grid against counter spells. Damping sphere against basically anything casting a bunch of spells. Tormod's Crypt and Soul God Lantern Soulless Jailer, all kind of anti-graveyard stuff. Tormod's Crypt and Soul God Lantern name will be found with Urza Saga. Soulless Jailer is a decent one of that you can find off of your Ancient Stirrings and Malevolent Rumbles. And then Pithing Needle is just a way to shut down. So I am very thankful that we actually ran into this deck, even though the gameplay of this deck was incredibly long, mostly because I really didn't want to play the deck because, well, I understood the combo, I don't enjoy clicking combos. The grinding breach is enough clicking. This one, as you saw, the clicks are just you create infinite mana. You know, if it's in paper, you can shortcut, and this deck is probably a blast to play in paper when you can shortcut. A Magic Online, when you gotta do all the clicks, it can take a little much, and if you have an opponent who has to be a passive-aggressive a-hole in some regards, like possibly I was in this matchup, it's not the funnest thing to play. So, anyways, if you like modern content, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Hope to see you for our next video.